Yeah, good morning, class. Once again, I welcome you for yet another session in science where we will be learning about adaptation in animals. Remember, this is the topic we've been learning for the last two lessons that we've had. The last time we talked about adaptation in movement, especially in animals like the fish or the flying animals, and then the swimming animals. And we said that there are very many features which can only be found in such animals. For example, in flying, we said that animals that fly have wings that are developed for flying. In other words, we're saying that the animals cannot be able to fly without wings. However, I remember mentioning that a bat does not have wings, but it has a skin which has developed into features that can be able to help it fly. We also said that the wings have very strong muscles which enable them to flap and be able to balance in the air. I remember mentioning that these animals also have light bodies which make them be able to float in the air with a lot of ease. I also mentioned that they are streamlined. They have streamlined bodies, meaning that the front part is pointed. The front part is pointed so that it can be able to experience less resistance in the air. That is the air resistance. Air resistance would act against them when they are flying, but with the streamlined bodies, they can be able to fly with a lot of ease. I also mentioned that they have flat tails, and the flat tails help them especially in slowing down. These ones act like the brakes. So anytime a bird or an animal that flies is in the air, if it wants to slow down, it will use the flat tails to be able to slow down so that it can be able to either stop or not move very, very fast. A bat, which is a flying mammal and not a bird, remember I said it has extended skin, which enables it to fly. Now, among the bird family, we have those birds that are not able to fly. We have those birds that are not able to fly, and we said these are known as the flightless birds. Flightless birds include such birds as the ostrich, the turkey, the emu, the duck, the goose, as well as the chicken. Remember what we said about their inability to fly? Could you remember and mention what we said about their inability to fly? Good. We said they are not able to fly mainly because their bodies are very heavy or too heavy to fly. And why are their bodies heavy? It is because they contain bone marrow in their bones. Bone marrow is that substance which is found inside the bone, and it makes the bones very heavy. So when the bones are heavy, then the bird becomes very heavy and thus cannot be able to fly. Well, I know one of you or some of you may say that, but we see our chicken flying, we see our ducks flying, we see turkeys flying. Yes, they can fly for a short distance. They cannot be able to gain height like the other birds do. How do you imagine an ostrich flying, for example? An ostrich cannot fly, but because it cannot fly, God has blessed it with speed. It is actually the fastest bird on the ground when it comes to running. So it may not be able to fly, but it can be able to run very, very fast. A turkey cannot fly. It can only fly for a short distance. A duck can also just fly for a short distance. So these birds, which are known as flightless birds, are not able to fly because they have bone marrow which makes them very, very heavy, thus not being able to fly. So I want to believe you can be able to remember everything that is said pertaining to adaptation to flying. We mentioned 4 aspects, and this is about the streamlined bodies, having wings, having light bodies, and then of course having the flat tail, which enables them to slow down anytime they're moving. You see, when a bird is flying, sometimes it can be able to fly very, very fast, and then it stops abruptly. The reason why it's able to stop is because it used its tail feathers to stop. Tail feathers are the ones that help in stopping because they act as the brakes, like in a bicycle, a motorcycle, or a car for that matter. Now, we also mentioned about adaptations in swimming, adaptations to swimming, and we said as far as swimming is concerned, the factors that enable animals to swim include the presence of fins. The fins, these are extensions which are seen on animals like the fish, and they are on different parts of their bodies. Different fish have different types of fin. So the fins help the fish in moving forward. They also help them to control the levels at which the fish can swim. You see, the fish can learn to swim just at the surface of the water or deep inside the water. So they can be able to help in swimming. We also mentioned that they slow down or stop. The fins help the fish to slow down or stop. Just like in the birds, we have the tail feathers. In the fish, you also have the tail fin. The tail fin also helps in slowing down the fish. They also are useful because they keep the fish upright and prevent them from rolling. You see, since they are found on both sides of the fish, they can help them in not rolling, even if they are moving in moving water. So they cannot be able to roll over. They also can be used in changing direction when the fish is moving. Another aspect we mentioned is the air bladder. The air bladder, which is found in fish, that enables the fish to swim and not be able to drown. It's not able to drown because the air bladder, which is also known as the swim bladder, maintains the fish depth up to where it can be able to swim up to. Anytime it wants to sink, then it can simply be just relax and then it will float. So that helps it a lot. You can imagine if you had an air bladder, you would also not be able to sink. You could float without necessarily using a floater when you go to swim. But since you are not a fish, you don't have an air bladder, nor do you have a swim bladder to help you maintain some depth when you are swimming. And then we also mentioned the webbed feet. Have you seen the webbed feet of a fish? Of course, fish don't have feet, but the webbed feet are mainly found on birds. That's the swimming birds. The swimming birds like the ducks, the geese, these normally swim. They swim, but then they are able not to sink because their feet are webbed, and so it helps them in not only floating but also in moving in water. So the webbed feet, these are, remember, have an extension of a thin skin between the toes, which enables them to flap through the water even as they are moving, to pull the water and then they move forward. Number 4, we talked about the streamlined bodies in the swimming animals, and this also, just like it is in birds, it helps in reducing resistance of water when they are moving. Number 5, we talked about the scales which are found on these animals. Remember, even the birds that swim also have scales on their feet. The ducks have scales on their feet. The fish have scales on their feet, and these scales help to they help to make sure that the water flows smoothly over these animals. They help the water to move or to flow smoothly over the animals so that they have very, very little resistance. They also help in reducing the friction between the water and the body of this animal. So in essence, we mentioned that these are the factors which help these animals to be able to adapt in different environments as far as the water is concerned, as far as the air is concerned. Now today, I want us to talk about signs of ill health in livestock. Signs of ill health in livestock. Remember, our livestock, just like you and me, also falls sick. And when an animal falls sick, it means that the body organs are not functioning properly. It must be suffering from a disease. A disease is an unhealthy condition in the body which makes the animal not behave normally. You see, anytime an animal is not functioning properly, the body parts are not functioning properly, it means the animal is sick. And when the animal is sick, that means that it is not in its proper or normal state of being. So what do you think may be causing some of these diseases? Diseases are mainly caused by germs, such as bacteria, fungi, or viruses. Bacteria, fungi, or viruses are some of the things that cause diseases in animals. Another aspect that may cause diseases in animals are external and internal parasites. External parasites are those parasites that are found on the surface of the body of an animal. For example, we have ticks, we have mites, we have fleas. These are external parasites, and when they bite an animal, they can transmit diseases to these animals. Do you know of any disease that is transmitted by the ticks? There are quite a number of diseases. Can you think about them and possibly mention them or write them somewhere? We'll be able to check. Then internal parasites include such parasites as the tapeworms, the flukes. These are found inside the animal or the body of an animal, and normally they attack specific organs of the body, and they do not just get there and then they attack and that is it. No, they also cause diseases to these animals. So it is important that we take note of such parasites, that whenever they attack our animals, we have to find a way of removing them or having them come out as soon as possible. Otherwise, our animals will fall sick. Another aspect that can cause diseases is a deficiency of certain nutrients of the diet. You see, anytime the food that an animal feeds on is very, very important to the animal. So if the animal does not get the right food, if it doesn't get the right ration, the right portion of food nutrients, then it is possible that the animal can fall sick. So it is important that the animal should be fed on the right diet so that it can then be able to function properly. Otherwise, it will fall sick. So, having mentioned those three aspects, the germs, e.g. the bacteria, the fungi, and the viruses, and then you've also mentioned the external and internal parasites, and I've mentioned the deficiency, diseases which are caused due to lack of some nutrients, you are now able to identify what may be causing a disease, sicknesses in an animal. If you, for example, have not been feeding your animal properly, you will be able to tell that the animal is suffering from a deficiency disease. If by any chance the animal has been bitten by an external parasite, then you can almost be sure that this animal is suffering from a disease. For example, the tsetse flies, these are external parasites. They transmit such diseases as trypanosomiasis. Can you see trypanosomiasis? Trypanosomiasis is a disease that is mainly in cattle, and this is it can also be transmitted even in human beings, especially if you are bitten by the tsetse flies. That's when you end up having sleeping sickness. So these will cause diseases in animals. But how do you tell that an animal is suffering from a particular disease? We'll be able to go through this so that when you look at an animal, you can almost be sure to tell that this animal is suffering from a disease. You may not be sure which particular disease, but at least you can be able to tell that the animal is sick. So that is what I will want us to go through bit by bit and be able to identify the aspects that can lead us into knowing how to tell when an animal is suffering from a disease. So get ready that you can be able to go through all these aspects that will determine or will help us tell the sicknesses in an animal. I believe this will be very, very helpful. So, how would you tell a sick animal? A sick animal or an unhealthy animal can be identified by observing the following signs and symptoms. Signs, of course, are things that you can be able to see very, very easily, And symptoms are some of the things that can easily, the animal may be able to show some element of dullness or something like that. But then these are some of the signs and symptoms. Number one is coughing. Did you know that animals cough? Have you ever had a cow coughing, for example? Yes, they do. Number two is a rough coat. You see, the animal's outer surface or the fur of the skin out there is supposed to be smooth. But anytime you find it looking rough, that is a sign of sickness in this animal. Number three is when you observe the urine and the stool of this animal and find blood stains in them, then that is a sign of sickness in this animal. Number four is reduced yields. Reduced yields when an animal, for example, a cow was giving you 5 liters of milk anytime you milk, and all of a sudden it drops to 3 liters, 2 liters, or even 1 liter, or even 1 cup. That is a sign that the animal could be suffering from a disease. Number four is loss of weight. Any unexplained loss of weight in an animal is a sign of sickness. This tells that the animal is suffering from a disease. Number six is stunted growth. Stunted growth is where an animal is not able to grow to the right size. It is not able to grow to the right size, especially the young ones. They are not able to grow to the right size. This is also an indicator of sickness in an animal. So let's go through each point one after the other and then be able to understand them fully. Coughing. Coughing is mainly a condition which affects the respiratory tract of an animal or the breathing system of an animal. And anytime there is some abnormal discharge or dry, or the respiratory tract tends to dry up and therefore making the animal cough. Sometimes you've also felt the same way. You feel like, hey, there's something irritating your throat, so you cough. This coughing is not just without reason. There is a reason behind that. So anytime you find an animal coughing, just like if you find yourself coughing, there is an element of sickness. That is what you should know about an animal, that it is sick and it should be given the right medication. You cannot share your medicine with an animal because you may not be suffering from the same disease. So if you take a cough syrup, you cannot give that to an animal because it's coughing like you are coughing, for example. You will need to have to get the doctor prescribe, that is the vet prescribe the right medicine for the animal so that you can control the coughing. Then we have the rough coat. The rough coat. The coat of an animal is made of either hair or feathers. For mammals, of course, it's hair. For birds, it's feathers. These cover the body of an animal. And if an animal's body is not, the coat is rough, these will tell you that the animal is not normal, because generally it is supposed to have a glossy coat which is shiny and smooth. Generally it should be shiny and smooth. Even if it's dark colored, it should be shiny and smooth. But anytime it's dull colored and rough, that is an indication of an animal being unwell. The hairs and the feathers you find them standing out, and sometimes they can even fall off. When an animal's hair or fur or feather starts falling off without any reason, this is an indication that the animal is unwell. So it is important that you observe the animal very carefully and you should be able to then take action. But actually, sometimes some of the reasons that would lead to the skin of an animal becoming itchy or even peeling off or even developing sores is external parasites, like the mites, like the fleas. They attack the animal and they hide underneath the feathers or the fur, and anytime they bite the animal feels itchy. So this will lead to the hair or fur or even the feathers falling off. And like I mentioned earlier, this will make the animal fall sick. So it is imperative that you observe your animals very carefully for such signs so that then action can be taken. Number 3, we mentioned the blood in the urine. Blood in the urine is a stain that shouldn't appear at all, both in the urine and even in the stool. And anytime it appears there, it is an indication that the animal has internal bleeding. It is having internal bleeding either in the digestive tract or in the bladder, urinary tract, or particularly the bladder. So anytime the animal is attacked, like if you would be attacked by the flukes, for example, the flukes can be able to attack especially the urinary tract, and then of course there are those which attack the digestive system. Anytime they attack the digestive system, you will see stool stool coming out with the blood stains. And if anytime they attack the urinary tract, then you'll see urine coming with blood stains. So you observe the animal stool as well as the animal urine, and anytime you see indications of blood stains, this is a sign or a symptom that tells you that the animal is unwell, and therefore you should have appropriate action taken so that the animal is treated. Now we have number 4. We mentioned the reduced yields. It's automatic that an animal that is not healthy will not be able to feed properly. And when it doesn't feed properly, its yields also go down. Be it meat, the meat will not be very good because it's not feeding properly. The milk level will have to go down. The eggs in birds will have to reduce. And the other products as well, you'll find them going down completely. So this is a sign that the animal is not feeding well, and thus it is unhealthy. So that will lead to reduced yields. Number 5, we mentioned loss of weight. An unhealthy animal may lose body weight either gradually or even suddenly. Sometimes the body weight just goes down, pop. An animal that looked very healthy a few days ago, today we look at it and we wonder, hey, what has just happened to this animal? This is an indication that the animal may not be feeling very well. And when you see this in an animal, it is enough to suggest to you that you need to look for a vet who will be able to come and diagnose or tell which disease the animal may be suffering from and recommend the right medication for this animal. Number 6, we talked about the stunted growth, and the stunted growth in this case is more or less like slow growth rate, or the animal remains undersized and generally thinner than other animals of the same age, but then you find this one is not growing very fast. So this tells you that the animal is stunted. It's not growing. So when it is stunted, it's even the yields, of course, definitely are going to be low. You'll also realize that it stops growing before maturity, and then in most cases such animals don't feed properly. And when they don't feed properly, you can be sure without any doubt that the yields are going to be very low. So it's important to be observant and see anytime you see such indications that we mentioned: the stunted growth, loss of weight, reduced yields, blood in the urine, as well as a rough coat. These will tell you that the animal is not well and therefore should be treated so that it can be able to be normal. A normal animal is equal to good yield. Now, so what are some of the effects of livestock diseases? What are some of the effects of the livestock diseases? We will be able to go through at least 4 effects so that we can be able to know it's important to control these livestock diseases, because if we don't control them, then they are going to affect our animals. Number 1, ill health in animals may result in low yields. We have already mentioned that, and we can only repeat. Low yields, meaning that less milk from the dairy animals. Birds may lay less eggs. Donkeys, horses, oxen will do less work because they don't have enough energy to work. Number 2, reduced quality of products. You see, apart from just getting the yields, we also need to get the best quality. So an animal that is not healthy will have reduced quality in terms of its products. The animal products which fetch good money in the market, that is, if a farmer sells, you'll find them not being able to, because if, for example, it's the eggs become very small. If it's milk, it becomes very watery. And if it's the hides or the skin, it becomes perforated especially by the external parasites. When they bite the animal, they perforate it, and when it is perforated, then it cannot be able to fetch good money. So it is important that we are keen enough to see that such things whenever they are on our animals, that we can be able to control them. Then we have transmission of diseases to human beings. Animals which are sick, if fed on by human beings, can easily transmit the same diseases to human beings. For example, did you know that you can be able to get such diseases as anthrax from an animal that is suffering from that disease? It's a very dangerous disease, which you can be able to get if you eat meat that has not been well cooked from an animal that may be suffering from anthrax. And this is a very fatal disease. It can kill. We can also get TB by taking milk from an animal that has contracted TB. So it is important that we boil our milk very, very well before we take it, because you do not know where the animal may have been grazing and if it may have come in contact with TB germs. So you can be able to get that very easily. Last but not least, we have death of the animal. This is the most unfortunate thing that can happen if untreated diseases, if animals are untreated for long, they can easily die. A disease like anthrax leads to sudden death in an animal. Now imagine if you have an animal and then it just dies. It means you have lost your income, probably, or you've also lost a very good investment that you have put in that animal. So it is important that we are very careful with the way we handle our animals, that the same way we would fall sick when we expose ourselves to some of these conditions that we mentioned, the animals also fall sick. What we need to do is take appropriate action. Anytime we see such indications of sicknesses in animals, we contact our vets or the veterinary doctors, who will come, check the animal, and then determine what disease they are suffering from and give the right medication. Don't be the doctor, because you may have seen some of these signs in the animal and think that it could be this or the other disease, yet it's not. Some of the signs and symptoms of certain diseases may be the same, but the disease can only best be diagnosed by a veterinary doctor, who will be able to determine what disease it is and then what medication should be given to that animal. So please, boys and girls, I want to believe that with this you are well empowered to be able to tell when an animal is sick, so that then it can be given the appropriate treatment. Thank you very much for the class. I will give you notes for the same, so that you can be able to read for yourselves, as well as answer some questions that will come alongside this. Thank you very much, and God bless you.